Imagine leaving your home for an entire week and returning to two completely different reactions. One animal seems emotionally overwhelmed, while the other acts as if it barely noticed you were gone. Today, we're not just observing our pets. We're diving into the silent minds of dogs and cats to explore 5 fascinating questions that most people have never heard answered scientifically. The first question is one that almost everyone wonders about. Why do we often see dogs willing to risk their lives for their owners, while cats rarely display the same kind of heroic behavior? Is it a lack of loyalty? Or is there a deeper biological code that makes the concept of sacrifice fundamentally different between the two species? That leads us to the second question. If cats can be just as intelligent as dogs, and sometimes even more clever, why do they often refuse to obey commands, while dogs seem eager to follow even the smallest signal from their owners? Are cats simply stubborn, or do they have a completely different understanding of control and independence? But what about the drama of mistakes? Why does a dog appear guilty after knocking over a vase, while a cat can sit calmly beside the mess and look completely unfazed? Does either animal truly feel guilt, or are humans misunderstanding their body language entirely? And what happens when you leave home? If a dog and a cat are left alone for an extended period, which one adapts better to isolation, and which one struggles the most without its primary source of emotional security? Finally, how did these two completely different animals manage to take over millions of homes around the world and convince us that we can't live without them, despite their vastly different personalities? In this video, we won't rely on guesses or myths. We'll uncover the scientific explanations behind these fascinating differences and answer each of these questions one by one. And the final answer may completely change the way you understand your pet forever. Stay with us. Before we start, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's answer one of the biggest questions in the pet world. If cats are just as clever as dogs, why does your cat seem to ignore you while your dog does everything it can to make you happy? The answer isn't intelligence, it's control. For dogs, obedience is more than training, it's emotional. Dogs are naturally wired to seek human approval. In fact, studies have shown that a dog's reward centers can become highly active when receiving praise from its owner. Dogs pay attention not only to what you say, but also to how you say it, constantly learning what makes you happy. Cats are different. Cats know their names. They recognize their owner's voice. They understand when they're being called. The difference is that they choose when to respond. Unlike dogs, cats don't see themselves as members of a team with a leader. They evolved as independent hunters, and that independence is still a major part of their personality today. That's why trying to force a cat to interact usually has the opposite effect. A cat doesn't come because you told it to. It comes because it has decided that now is the right time. While dogs are driven by connection and approval, cats are driven by autonomy and control. So a dog obeys because it wants to belong. A cat resists because it wants to decide. Both are intelligent, but they use that intelligence in completely different ways. Now let's get to the question that confuses almost everyone. Why does a dog seem guilty the moment it breaks a vase, while a cat can sit right next to the mess looking completely unbothered? The answer is surprising. What you see in your dog's eyes isn't actually guilt in the human sense. It's a social response. Dogs are incredibly good at reading human emotions. They may not understand that the vase was expensive, but they can instantly tell that you're upset. As soon as they notice your anger, many dogs begin displaying calming behaviors, lowering their head, avoiding eye contact, or licking their nose in an attempt to reduce tension and restore harmony. In other words, the famous guilty look isn't necessarily an admission of wrongdoing. It's often a reaction to your emotional response. Cats, however, are built differently. Unlike dogs, cats didn't evolve to depend on a social group in the same way. They're naturally more independent, which means they don't have the same instinct to appease others when conflict appears. That's why a cat can knock over a vase and then calmly sit beside the broken pieces as if nothing happened. It's not being rude, and it's not trying to annoy you. From the cat's perspective, an object fell, the event is over, and life goes on. While a dog often tries to repair the bond after sensing your frustration, a cat simply observes the situation without feeling the need to apologize. Not because it cares less, but because the idea of saying "I'm sorry" isn't really part of a cat's natural playbook. Now imagine you leave home for an entire week. What happens next is a fascinating glimpse into how differently dogs and cats are wired. For many dogs, your departure is a big deal. You're more than just the person who feeds them. You're their main source of comfort, security, and routine. When you're suddenly gone, many dogs become stressed, restless, or anxious because the person they rely on most has disappeared. Dogs are highly social animals. They thrive on close relationships, and without their favorite human around, it can feel as if something important is missing from their world. Cats, however, tend to handle the situation very differently. That doesn't mean they don't miss you. Many cats form strong bonds with their owners. But unlike dogs, cats are often much better at regulating their own stress when left alone. A cat's sense of security comes largely from its environment. As long as the house still smells familiar, its routine remains intact, and food, water, and safe resting spots are available. Many cats continue with their daily lives surprisingly well. While a dog looks for the person who makes it feel safe, a cat looks for a stable environment that feels familiar. That's why, after a week apart, your dog may greet you as if you've returned from a years-long journey, while your cat looks at you for a moment and seems to say, "Oh, you're back." To answer the question of sacrifice, we first need to understand something important. A dog does not see you as a human who owns a pet. To a dog, you are the center of its identity. For thousands of years, dogs evolved within a pack-based social structure. This is not simply a social preference. It is a biological reality deeply embedded in their DNA. Dogs are the only animals that voluntarily left the wild to live alongside humans, and from that moment on, protecting the center of the group, which is you, became closely tied to their own survival. When a dog sacrifices itself, it is not making a sudden heroic decision. Instead, it is following an instinctive program that places the survival of the group above the survival of the individual. Even more fascinating, scientists have discovered what is known as the oxytocin loop between dogs and humans. When your dog looks into your eyes, its brain releases the same bonding hormone associated with the connection between a mother and her infant. This powerful biological mechanism can make a dog's loyalty feel stronger than its own instinct for self-preservation. On the other side, we have the cat, the natural solitary survivor. Unlike dogs, cats did not evolve to live in tightly organized packs or to protect a leader. They see you as a source of safety, comfort, and stability, but their nervous systems are built around independence and personal control. This does not mean cats are less loyal. Rather, the idea of sacrificing themselves for the group simply does not exist within their instinctive behavioral blueprint. A cat's survival strategy is fundamentally individual. When faced with danger, its instincts encourage it to retreat, secure its own safety, and survive first. In simple terms, a dog may sacrifice itself because it sees you as part of itself. A cat loves you because you are its safe world. And there is a profound difference between dying for yourself and loving the place where you feel secure. So how did these two completely different animals end up conquering our homes and our hearts? The answer lies in something remarkable. Both dogs and cats evolved in ways that made them exceptionally good at living alongside humans. Dogs became masters of communication. Over thousands of years, they developed an incredible ability to read our emotions, understand our intentions, and respond to our social cues. Even the famous puppy dog eyes may have evolved to trigger nurturing instincts in humans, making it even harder for us to resist them. Cats took a different approach. The meow you hear from your cat is actually unusual in the feline world. Adult cats rarely meow at one another. Instead, many of those sounds are used primarily when communicating with humans. In a way, cats developed their own language specifically for us. They also form deep emotional attachments. When a cat needs your lap, rubs against you, or chooses to sleep beside you, it may be expressing the same sense of comfort and security that kittens feel around their mother. And that's what makes this relationship so fascinating. Dogs and cats succeeded not because they became more like humans, but because they learned how to connect with humans in completely different ways. A dog wins your heart by making you feel needed. A cat wins your heart by making you feel chosen. And somehow, both strategies worked perfectly.